Both Mark Stoneman and Scott Borthwick hit the best scores of their career, sharing in Durham's record-breaking second wicket stand as their side completely dominated the opening day of the LV County Championship match at the Emirates Durham International Cricket Ground against table toppers Middlesex. The decision by Chris Rogers to have a bowl first after he won the toss completely backfired, as for the second game in a row at this ground, Bat totally dominated ball. Right from the start, the runs came at a very good lick, with Stoneman looking in quite brilliant touch, especially against what is regarded as one of the best seam attacks in the country. The day could have been so different though had David Milan held on to this edge off Stephen Finn, who was denied his 30th championship wicket of the season. For so long, scoring runs at this ground has been very difficult. Making even 200 was a problem for many visiting sides last year, but Yorkshire altered all of that by nearly hitting 600 recently, and now it was the turn of the home side to make the most of this flat pitch. Anything offline or slightly short of a length was biffed to the boundary, with Stoneman leading the way with a whole host of fours, while his opening partner, Keaton Jennings, was happy to play himself in with just the occasional boundary. In just 16 overs, these two blasted 82 runs, some start to the match. Stoneman was at his 50 in no time at all, getting to it with his 10th four from just his 47th delivery. Rogers must have seen something in this pitch for him to make his decision. Whatever it was, Stoneman was ignoring it by playing some wonderful cricket shots, which quickly had Middlesex on the back foot. At least Toby Rowland-Jones got one through Jennings to bowl him for 16, but already Stoneman was racing away, and it was going to be an awful long time before the visiting attack was able to celebrate again. The home team passed 100 in just the 20th over, and they'd reached 140 for one by the time that lunch was taken, Stoneman nearly producing the rare thing of 100 in the first session of a match. When he left for his food, he'd already made 94. It certainly set the bar high, but Borthwick was able to reach it as he too came in and played very freely from the off. Middlesex may not have been helped by sitting and watching the rain come down for 4 full days in Northwood last week. They perhaps were delighted to actually be playing some cricket, but would not have been enjoying watching the ball race to the boundary as many times as this. It was all rather remarkable. Borthwick rightly applauded Stoneman when he reached his ton off just his 105th delivery, getting there with his 17th boundary, a neat clip off his legs off Rowland-Jones. After a poor start of this season, the opener has really hit his straps of late. This was his second 100 in his last 2 championship matches at home. Anything that fell in too short was now being pulled with power by these two left-handers, who soon had 100 stand under their belts. They were to go on to score plenty more. The middle session alone saw these two hit 146 runs in 34 overs, with Middlesex's attack being taken to all parts of the park. Stoneman had his eyes on his career best of 131, which was made on this ground against Yorkshire just a few weeks ago. He shouldn't have got that far though, but was given another life by John Simpson off the bowling of the luckless Tim Murtagh. Both Murtagh and Finn were probably really looking forward to bowling here, but neither had days they will want to recall too often. Borthwick reached his 50 off his 71st ball with his 8th four. He'd also struck 1-6 in an innings which was only really about to get going. Often the ball just sat up and asked to be hit, and even those with the skills of Murtagh and Finn were left wondering how to get the next wicket. Borthwick now really started to kick on with some fantastic shots. All this from a man who had to sit out the last game after injuring a finger in the defeat to Somerset a couple of weeks ago. There was nothing wrong with his bones now, and the race was now on to see who would reach their next landmark first. Ravi Patel thought he prevented Borthwick from reaching his. The bowler and the fielders around the bat were convinced that the batsman had nicked behind. It was that kind of day for the visitors. Borthwick definitely hit this ball from Paul Sterling, given a rare outing in the 4-day game by his county. He bowled as well as anyone, but was let down by his close-in field. Stoneman had gone on to the best score of his career. He's done that twice now in the last month. This single took him to his 150 for the first time. He'd slowed down considerably after his brilliant start and now reached this mark of 193 balls, his third 50 occupying 88 deliveries. His tally of fours now stood at 23. In the same over, Borthwick drove Sterling down the ground to bring up his 100 with his 16th four. His ton, just the 5th of his career, had taken him 132 balls to reach, and he celebrated it in style. The partnership between these two was now closing in on the next milestone of 200. Reaching that was no problem as both batsmen continued to find the boundary. 258 was the next thing to concern them, as that would see them break a club record for the highest ever partnership for the second wicket, which had been held by the county's current coach Jonathan Lewis and Martin Love since 2001. Before that, Borthwick went to the best score of his career, beating the 135 he made against Surrey last year, and then he was again put down at leg slip, a tough chance off Sterling, who deserved better. But after the record-breaking stand of 274, Sam Robson did at last cling on to one in that position. It ended a memorable innings for Stoneman, who had to go just 13 runs shy of his first ever double ton. The score read 356 for 2 when Michael Richardson finally came in 63 overs after the first wicket had fallen, but he quickly ran himself out after a bit of a stumble. Rogers supplied the throw, which had the batsman out for 4. That must have hurt to get out that way on a pitch seemingly full of runs, but Borthwick was right to turn back as he now took his tally to 150, getting there with his 20th four. He'd now faced 201 deliveries in what was an innings to remind the England selectors of his talents. One man who's likely to be playing in the first test is Ben Stokes, who was greeted by an accidental beamer from Finn. He played it very well. As he did in his comeback match against Notts last week, the all-rounder looked in fine fettle with the bat. The 400 was posted before the day was ended for the full amount of batting bonus points, and Stokes eased his way to 23 before he was surprisingly out just before the close. Finn moved back to the top of the wicket-taking charts in the Championship this year, joining Jack Brooks on 30 by bowling Stokes, who played across this delivery. It was, though, a rare moment of joy for Middlesex, who will hope to have a much better time on day 2. Borthwick is still there on an exceptional 164, and he'll be dreaming of a first double 100 when he goes again on the second morning, with his side already very well placed on 411 for 4.